see if we can't start changing the way you see things on a guitar. Now, we'll start off with something fairly easy like pentatonic, and believe me, I shouldn't even say easy, because pentatonic is a very misunderstood scale. We tend to think of the pentatonic as being like a beginner scale, and then you're supposed to learn your diatonic and all this. The pentatonic never goes away. It's always there. It's just you can always add more notes. So let's talk about two things to begin with the pentatonic. Number one is adding more notes, and number two is getting creative with the way that you're playing these notes. So if we just took something like the pentatonic scale here, just this regular... The first thing that I do is I start learning how to add other notes into this and then utilize different kinds of ways of bending in things. So let's say instead of just playing 12-15, 12-14, 12-14, 12-14, 12-15, 12-15, okay, instead of doing it that way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some notes. Now for me, I tend to keep the 6th string 12-15. Now, there's a million things literally you could do with this, but the next string I'm going to play 12, 13, 14. The next string is going to be 12, 13, 14. The next string is going to be 12, 14, 15. Next string is going to be 12, 14, 15. Next string is going to be 12, 14, 15. So I have this. Okay? Now, I don't have to use all of these notes all of the time. I can sparingly use some of these notes and then just draw from them to give my solo a little bit more color. So let's say I was doing something like this. Here's just straight pentatonic. Which sounds just fine. Let's say I added in some of those notes. So here I'm going. Now, I don't have any one particular lick that I use or anything like that. I try and think about what's comfortable in being able to move toward the floor and being able to move toward the ceiling. I try and figure out, and this goes with hammer-on, or excuse me, I shouldn't say hammer-on, legato playing or picking. I don't believe in either being a legato player or you got to pick everything, like one's better than the other. I don't feel that way at all. I think you have to figure out the motion of the way you move across the guitar when you play. If I was up here and I went, I'm not really, aware of which ones I'm picking and which ones I am slurring, so to speak, which is hammer-ons and pull-offs. I'm just allowing it all to happen in the most organic way possible. So if I go back to my jam track here, this bass track, and I just play nice and slow for you, just adding some of these notes. Okay? So again, this is just a pentatonic element for me. So I'm adding in all of these other notes, and we could try and define, which scale they come from and which mode they come from. I'm just having some fun. This is a very essential element to the way I would play in expanding my pentatonic. Okay? Now that doesn't mean I can't add other notes. Here's the deal that I learned a long time ago. There is no such thing necessarily as right and wrong on the fretboard. But there's more right and more wrong. There are things that you will do that just will sound better to a listener and things that will sound less good, right? If I start playing and I'm playing in the right key and then I go to the wrong key, I mean, listen to how this is going to sound, right? I think you already know, right? it's not going to sound very good, right? So it's a cop-out for us to say, well, we can do anything because it's music. And okay, theoretically, I suppose to a certain degree that's true, but there are things that you will do that will make more sense. So that kind of brings me to the next topic of interest I want to talk to you about, which again, we'll expand as we keep going. But target notes. Notes that you know are going to sound good over the chord that's being played. Okay? So not only do we learn how to add different notes for different color, which makes a huge difference. Meandering tells us we're trying to learn how to organize movements and repetition and things like this as we play. And now we're learning that we can add more notes into this thing, and I'm going to give you all kinds of different stuff that you can practice. Okay? And you can just kind of see what I just did there in E minor pentatonic, how I added all of these new notes in there. It doesn't mean I want to play them all fast. It doesn't mean I want to play them all at the same time. But those notes are providing me with some color that I did not have before when I was just playing the skeletal pentatonic scale. Right? But I also need to be aware that, for instance, this bass track that you're hearing here, it's playing over an E. So we've got this E sound playing. So I know if I am aware of where my E's are on my fretboard, I can try and target those notes, and they're going to sound natural. They're going to sound good. If I hit an E or I emphasize an E over an E, it's going to sound really nice. So let me show you that again. Now again, everything's pretty elementary at this point, but just so you understand the concept. Okay, so as I'm emphasizing this E over E, it sounds great. Now, the logical question that always comes up is well, do you have other notes that you can emphasize? Sure you do, okay? But this is going to open up a little can of worms, and this is going to bring us into our diatonics. So we're going to wait for just a little bit longer, and we're going to talk about that, okay? We need a little bit of theory, a little bit of understanding of our fretboard to be able to do that, so don't be worried about it. Again, if I start talking a little too deep for you, get what I'm doing here, not what I'm doing here. And if you really want to get what I'm doing here with my words, that's when you would study some of these other things a little bit, okay? So let's keep expanding this pentatonic. Let me show you some other really great things that you can do. Now, what I like to do is if I'm in this position here, this first position, if you will, one really cool thing that I learned how to do was to play what we call the outsides of the pentatonic scale. So instead of playing like this, I started learning how to play like this. And again, I wouldn't do that the entire time, but that's what I'm doing. I'm going... So you start learning how to play the outsides, 14-14, and 12-12. Or 15-14 on the second string here, and then the 12s. And you can see how I'm picking and stuff like that, but again, that's not really the focus point here. You can play these any way you want. I'm not concerned with speed and all that. I'm trying to get you to a place where you start thinking more creatively about the way you're approaching things. Okay? So one creative aspect is new notes. Now, you know, I've got, all kinds of different videos that talk about licks and things like that. Licks to me are really great things. This course isn't just going to be about trying to show you how to play 782 guitar licks, because I've already got courses that do stuff like that. This is more about you sitting down with the concept that I'm giving you and trying to figure out how you can make some interesting movements with it. And of course, you can use what I'm doing here, but I'm literally improvising. So I'm not playing any particular licks. I'm just showing you how organically my fingers tend to flow across the fretboard. Okay, so that outside picking thing is a really neat thing to be able to do. And then what I like to do is I'll then slide into other positions and do some other cool stuff. So let me show you some ideas that you could add in to make your pentatonic a little more creative, and then we'll move into diatonic in just a little bit. Okay, so another thing I like to do is when I'm in this position, I really love these first 3 strings here. Those guys are kind of my hub. You know, I just make up all kinds of different stuff with things like that. But what I like about it is it's a great place for me to slide down into the 5th position. And if you ever watch any of my soloing stuff, you're going to see me do it all the time. So for instance, if I was here and I came down these first 3 strings here, doing whatever, you'll see me slide down to that 9 quite frequently, and then I'll work my way back up to the 5th position here. And I use the 10, 11, 12. There's a chromatic note in between there. So I might do something where I'm coming down this. Okay, so again, let me show you that in real context over this jam track. Okay, sorry about that. Maybe. Okay, so this is one thing that it always seemed to me like I couldn't learn by watching other people. I could learn the licks. I could read the tab. I could learn the licks. But it was more how they were moving that I never caught on to. It never occurred to me, okay? I always just thought about what they were doing, right? So I'd learn a lick, whatever it might be. But I never understood how they got from one lick to the next lick, or how they got from somewhere to somewhere. So that's when I started learning, you know, it's not that I don't need licks. I got all kinds of licks that I can play. But it's more about the way you move from one string to the next, or the way you move from one position to the next. Start learning how to think about that. Then once you're in that position, you'll have a couple of different licks or patterns or ideas from meandering and learning guitar licks and whatever it is you might be doing to play as you move through these positions. Now, there's certain positions that I use more than others. I love, pentatonically, I love this first position, and this 5th position. Okay? Well, now, if I was going to move into the 4th position, I've just shown you how I tend to do a lot of this. That's kind of the palette in which I work from in my first position. Again, jumping over and under and in and out and back and forth, meandering style. That, to me, I always refer to it as intervallic playing. I don't know that that's a real great way of saying it. But instead of just playing everything up and down, I tend to try and play things in and out and back and forth. So I'll play a run, for instance, that might go up or down, but then I'll follow it up with something that doesn't go up and down. So if I'm going like this, so I'm kind of jumping in and out. Now I'm down here, and I know I've got this stuff. Okay, so in this position, I tend to do, again, 10, 12, and then 10, 11, 12. And for now, 9, 12, 9, 12, and then 10, 11, 12, and then 10, 12. So you can see I'm not just maximizing by saying, well, I can play every note. Again, it goes back to that same thing. I could. But I find that my phrasing gets more creative when I don't just say every note is fair game. I pick certain strings that I want to utilize stuff on, and then certain strings I just kind of leave alone. That's just the way I approach things. That way it keeps it interesting and creative for me, and I'm not just packing every lick that I play with as many notes as I can possibly play. Okay, sometimes like this pentatonic, you can see there are a lot of notes, but it's not like I'm always playing that. I'm just kind of grabbing here and there as needed. Okay, so now if I was moving down into the third position, or the fourth position, excuse me, down in the fourth position, which looks like this. Okay, down here what I like to do is I'll just add in some real subtle things. I'll add in these first two will just be pentatonic, just 10, 12, or excuse me, 7, 10, I'm sorry. And then here I'll play 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. And then here I'll play 8, 9, 10. And then generally on this string I'll play just the 7, 10. See how I can kind of move back and forth between those two positions? If I'm going to play chromatic up here on 10, 11, 12, I don't play chromatic necessarily on 8, 9, 10, because then I just wind up with all of that. So I like to do... See how I played 7... That was all nice and pentatonic. And then I add those in. So I'm very aware if I just did something that was quite notey, I try and follow it up with something that has less notes. So I'm always trying to make a variety of things happening. And you'd be surprised that just these little things can make a big difference in your blues playing or your rock playing or whatever it is that you're trying to do. See, like right there, I came down this. And then there was that 10, 11 from here. Okay, and that we're going to get to in a little bit too, is how you can play these things in multiple octaves. So there's just a whole host of ideas here. So again, this would be a great place if you've never done half of the stuff I'm talking about. You don't have to continue watching right now. You could stop and just start learning how to add in a couple of things. As I add in some of these notes, you'll notice that what I tend to do is I'm not just playing them all up and down with speed picking, but I tend to kind of go in and out as I play. You know, I'm not just going... just trying to pick everything. Now, I'm not saying I don't do that sometimes, okay? Because sometimes I do. Sometimes I like to play those faster licks like that. But that isn't the concept of creativity as a whole. It's just an idea. What I love to do is move in and out of these things. All of a sudden, you're going to start noticing that your soloing just sounds light years better, okay? So, again, each position has certain elements that it can offer you, but you don't have to just go from the theoretical standpoint of, well, I did that there, so I need to do it here in the lower octave, and then I need to do that in this octave because it was done in this octave here, so I got to add that note here. I don't even look at my fretboard that way. It isn't all about trying to create just this uniform one logical element across my entire fretboard. That takes the fun out of it for me. Each position provides certain elements that I like about it and certain things that I don't really do. Okay, let's move down into the third position for a second. Down here, I love the fact that I've got my E sitting right here. So I can do all my cool bluesier stuff. So what am I actually doing here? Okay, well, I've got 5, 7, 5, 7, which is what I should be playing. Okay, but I'll add in, for instance, I'll add in 5, 6, 7. And up here I could play 5, 6, 7. But what I really like to do is play 5, 6, 7 here, and then 5, 7, 8 on this next string. Okay, and then on the 6th string, I'll play 7, 6, 5, 5, 6, 7. And that's where you get all this cool, you know, ZZ Top-ish. And you can see as I do that, it just winds up sounding too much. So I don't want that. So I'm going to turn this into a 5-7, turn this into a 5-7-8, and now I got a nice balance of some chromatic in there, some bluesy. Play my jam track here. I'm not sure why my jam track doesn't want to play here. See? So the fun of this is here's what I do, and I'm being completely honest with you. What I do is I find something out there, a lick, a movement, a transition, whatever it might be, that I like, which is where I learn half the stuff. I don't know where it all comes from, obviously, but it's come from other places. And then what I'll do is I'll take that little idea, that lick or transition or whatever it might be, and I figure out how I can use it in my playing. Not just that I can play it. That's not enough. I've got to be able to go to it from up, go to it from down, go to it from back, go to it from front. I've got to be able to make it work organically within the movements that I already have. It's not just whether or not I can learn a lick, because that doesn't really do me any good at all. Does that make sense? So if I learn some lick, I have to figure out how to get from somewhere to that lick, or get to that lick and then get out to somewhere else. That's how this stuff becomes really useful. It's not just a matter of a lick. And I know that's the easy way. It just is. If I could just, again, I've got a 96 rock licks or 96 blues licks or 36 metal licks or, you know, whatever, acoustic licks, all these different things that you can learn all kinds of guitar licks. And I think that's great, and you need those. But just learning licks isn't going to be enough. You still got to figure out how to utilize this in your playing. That's the big thing. Okay? So you got to learn not only ideas, but you've got to learn flow, which is what meandering is all about. Your ability of being able to move in and out and back and forth between various positions. Okay? Sometimes I like to do big slides. Where I'm sliding over a lot of positions. You know, I love sliding in and out and back and forth. I love that sound. That's what I've always been attracted to as a guitar player. Doesn't mean everybody is, but that's what I enjoy. Okay? So learning how to sort of break down some of these elements of positions, that's something that's really important for you. And again, right now we're just dealing mostly with pentatonic. But I would love for you to explore these a little bit and see what you come up with.